Hello and welcome to another video. Today we are going to try out the Fujifilm 18-120 Powerzoom, and I did a lot of research about this video and I found basically no video that really nicely showcased the capabilities of the lens with sample footage and such. It's mostly content creators talking about their experience like for 30 minutes and showcasing like photos of sharpness in the corners and such. So today we will just make a small trip, make a few recordings with it and see whether this is really a nice video lens to replace your camcorder with a Fujifilm camera. If you have never heard about this lens before, it has a few interesting quirks. The zoom is not operated by hand or by moving something physically on the camera, but you have 3 different switches that you can use and it's electronically operated. And this means that you can have a very smooth zooming motion, like on a camcorder. And this is a very interesting feature for video. In fact, you have, as I said, 3 different ways of operating it. You have a wheel that zooms in and zooms out as much as you turn the wheel. You have a rocker, and depending on how strong you push on the rocker or pull on the rocker, the zoom stays constantly faster, slower. And then you have a switch that you can press, switch to zoom in, and then the camera starts zoom. That is very stable and you can change the speed of the zoom in the setting. I will try to record most of it in 30 FPS, and for that I have a variable ND filter on the Powerzoom lens. It's a Nisi True Color VND 1 to 5 stops, and usually it gives some pretty good results without tinting too much the footage.
The clips you see are edited. I wrote down what I edited in them, and at the end of the video I pasted exactly the same clips but without stabilization and any editing, so that you can see how they look like straight out of the camera. Final Cut Pro's stabilization is able to really make the most out of these clips. But sometimes you see occasionally some kind of jitter that is due to too much movement or losing focus.
We are in the beautiful little town of La Neuville in the canton of Bern. It's a beautiful little medieval town that I read you should visit when you're in Switzerland, and I'm playing a little bit local tourist today. So this is where we are going to shoot a little bit of footage. It looks very nice, very Swiss.
Because the lens is only stabilized with IBIS and has no OIS, you occasionally see some kind of weird perspective changes, like you are rotating the picture actually. With digital stabilization you can get some really nice zoom shots. For static subjects, together with the stabilization tripod mode in Final Cut Pro, you can get some really nice stable footage. With dynamic range 400, even in these harsh light conditions you can get quite a good dynamic range. But this means that you have a base ISO of 640, which means that you really have to turn your variable ND filter up to ND5 or so, which can give some color cast. The electronic zoom is far from being as smooth and consistent as on a camcorder, but it's enough for some zoomed in shots if you want to highlight a subject. For moving subjects, the IBIS is really struggling to keep a good perspective, and you can see it like shifting around like crazy. I think in the Fuji forums they call this IBIS wobble. So if you want some good results, you really should keep your camera as stable as possible. In some situations, even if you have a quite still subject and you stabilized in editing, you really see the perspective shifting around a lot, and this can be quite distracting. If we look at the clips, like how they get out of the camera, we can really see that the lens and the camera are struggling with stabilizing the footage. Also, both the lens and the camera are quite noisy. When you zoom in, you can very clearly hear it with the internal microphone of the Fuji X-S20. As a conclusion, the new Powerzoom lens from Fujifilm is a very interesting lens that has definitely a few issues, but on the other hand really allows to make some nice videos and to take some great photos too with one camera. I guess I will continue practicing with it and see what kind of situation it is good for and what not. Together with the stabilization in editing, the results are absolutely usable. And I think it's a nice lens. Yes.